All
Right
right,
in the
all
middle
right.
of mid sip.
There we go. There we go. We taking this live. We taking this live. Hey, welcome everybody. If this is your first time, that's great because this is our first time. um,
Yay, first timers.
you know what I'm saying? My name is B, Uncle B, and that right there is a
I'm
beautiful one
Fee.
named Fee. Love it, love it. But hey, you know what? We've been talking about doing this for a long time. Talking
Yes,
about
we
getting together
have.
and talking about relationships. Hold on a second. Let me get myself all gearified up.
Purify yourself. Sanitate.
Hmm. There. Sanitate. Yeah, sanitate yourself. So yeah,
Yes, I'm
folks.
still haunted by that.
Oh, good lord. Yeah. So basically, what we're going to do today is go ahead and talk about. Hold on one more
What
second.
is a woman's role in a relationship? That's what.
Hmm.
Oh, we're also going to talk about what men's role is too. But it seems like women messing up out here in these streets seems to be a hot topic now. So I guess that's what we're going to be doing here, right? Hello,
Yeah, yeah.
microphone check 1 2 1 2.
There we go. There we go. I'm back. I'm back.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Just wanted to
So,
make sure.
yeah, we live. We live. But yeah, because it's it's important because a lot of times people are just going around just doing whatever they feel like doing, and that can be dangerous to a point. So basically, let me go ahead and lay it out right quick so we can hop into it.
Lay it
We
out.
always talk about what is a man supposed to do, and it was just sort of know it's like provide and protect. Those are the two words that is universally accepted. That's what a man is supposed to do. So the question is, what is a woman supposed to do? And I've been asking this question for a long time. And
Hmm.
I have, in most cases, it starts out with crickets. And then it goes to, I've heard everything from whatever we want to, just stay home, be pregnant to, to, yeah. But basically, those are the answers. I've heard like one person come close to it, what I think it is. But
And I'm curious. When we get into it, I want to know what did you hear that was close to it, in your
Oh,
opinion?
okay. Gotcha. Because the issue for me is that if women in mass do not know that answer, that can lead to a whole bunch of weird things, such as if you're listening to this right now, you'd be like, as a woman, you'd be like, I'm going to make you starting to make stuff up in your head, and that's sort of the question is like, why is that needed? If it's known what men are supposed to do, why isn't it known to men and women what
Hmm.
women are supposed to do? And so, yeah, that can cause some issues. And we're talking about, um, uh, because this is something that you literally can't do in any other part of your life. So you're supposed to know what you're doing when you get a job. You're supposed to know what you're doing
Hmm.
when you're driving, you're shopping. I mean, you're supposed to know. You can't even just, in any part of your life just say, well, I'm just going to make it up, because even with your own child, something that is literally your own, you can't just do whatever you want to that child, because child protective services will come along and take your kid. So there's that. And if you want to be in a good relationship, if one person knows what they're supposed to do and the other person is sort of making it up, then you end up in a situation where both people are dissatisfied and disillusioned and confused. And what I've noticed is that a lot of women tend to take on a whole bunch of different roles at the same time. And it's like, I'm going to be the provider, the protector, the mother and the father and the doctor and the psychiatrist, and just get overwhelmed, get tired, get upset, then get some of them pills.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, I was literally just at an event this past weekend, and I asked a group of highly educated women. They're off into their professions, have children, done their thing, and asked them, and it came back again with crickets, and it was like, hold up, I started asking this question like 20 years ago, and we still don't have this answer. So, uh, and so yeah, there it is. It's like, to me, the other conspiracy theory side of it is that has this been done on purpose? So if you have a group of people who don't have their purpose, know what they're supposed to do, what ends up happening? Which, basically someone can just come along and say, hey, we got some other things for you to do. Do this instead of doing what you're supposed to do. And to me, that's what's happened. So
Supposed to do.
yeah, post to do. So I think there's women have an innate superpower, just like men have our own innate superpowers, and we have been misaligned with those. So really, it's just a question of like, I didn't just want to say my answer. I wanted to hear from some other folks. So, Fee, what you think? What are women
Okay.
supposed to do?
Well, let's get into it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about, women's roles in modern times, that is, we got to kind of look at how we even arrived here in the first place. So we kind of have to, start off with like a historical context of each of their roles. But let's kind of dive into it in that way, in the historical context.
Mm-hmm.
So women's roles have changed. They've sort of transitioned over the years. It's not like a woman's role in 1920 is completely different than in 2021. And that sort of began with the feminism movement. Now, the feminist movement that started, I think, like sometime in like maybe the late 1800s. Don't quote me, but I think it's somewhere around in the late 1800s. However, um, basically, the women's I should say the feminist movement was sort of to bring equality to women, give them equal rights, personal freedoms, just giving them some of the same things that men have been able to get historically throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's like four different waves here. And part of the second, third, I'm just going to talk about briefly the second, third, and fourth wave of the feminist movement sort of involves the women's liberation movement. That's part of the feminist movement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the women's liberation movement was basically when, and I should have done my research on this one, but I remember I had a conversation with one of my friends, and we were talking about like some of the wars, and I can't remember which war it was, but there was a war that happened. I believe it was sometime in the 40s when all of the men in the United States, or a majority of the men, went off to I don't know if it was Vietnam or it was one
You
of
said
those big
World War
wars.
II. World War II.
Okay, World War II. So
Mm-hmm.
then the women ended up, having to stay home. And because they had to stay home, they still had to, go ahead and pay bills and make sure that the household was still ran, and same thing that the man would have done. Well, when the men returned from war, the women started to kind of find that, hey, I think I kind of dig this. I like being in this position. And that's really kind of where it started. Now, they did let men resume their role, and they kind of resumed their role. But I think that what it did was it put a nugget in the back of a lot of women's minds that, you know what, this is something I think I could get used to, or maybe I could pass this on to my children. Now, some of the women actually, I think that they started to kind of, they still worked, but they might have cut the hours down because the man was still home, of course, and it was the very beginning, but it still planted the seed. Now we fast forward into the 60s. In the 60s, we have the women's liberation movement, which
Mm-hmm.
involved,
Free
you
sex.
know, yes, free sex, the drugs, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we want the same things men have. Okay.
Mm.
So with this,
Smart.
well, I mean, this is just what happened. This was a
Mm-hmm.
part of the 60s. The 60s brought about a lot of different radical changes. It wasn't just the women's lib movement, but that was just one aspect of it, which of course pertains to what we're talking about. But women wanted, they wanted to have all the things that men had. So they fought for liberation. Now, what happened, which is kind of messed up in my opinion, is that a lot of women, this was really a white woman's battle. We are just going to be
Mm-hmm.
straight up clear about this. This was a white women's battle because black men never kept black women down, because we were both in the same boat together. We had both come out of slavery. We were both in, this oppressed state together. But what happened was some of the white women came and recruited some of the black women out of the civil rights movement that was going on and brought them to the liberation movement. And so what ended up happening was they made it a general thing like, hey, we're oppressed, you're oppressed because you're a woman like us. That's where it started. And anytime, laws started to get passed, in favor of the women.
Mhm.
Anytime things happen, anytime laws get passed, it's known that things don't immediately take hold. Like that law does not immediately hold up. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Mhm.
not like you immediately now all of a sudden are experiencing this freedom. It usually takes at least a generation or two before you feel it. Really 2 generations to really feel it. So
Yeah.
here we come now into the 80s. In the 80s, women are kind of like, hey, I'm going to work. I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm just as good as a man. This, in my opinion, is where the roles started to change from the woman is at home to the woman is at work. That
Mhm.
was where it started. But the 90s ushered in a whole nother revolution in which women were like, I ain't got time to be cooking, baking no cookies for you, cooking dinner for no kids. You need to be doing something too.
Mhm.
This is really where it started, in my opinion. Now, at my age, I'm over 40. So I was a young girl in the 90s and I was getting that message. So because I was getting the message that, hey, you can go out, you can be whatever you want, you can do whatever you want, don't let no man hold you back. I was a young girl during the, I'm gonna say, the Oprah generation.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
there were women really in their 50s that were kind of following Oprah's creed, but women like me in their 40s were more so like, we heard it, but as a child, you're being subconsciously programmed to understand that this is what's coming down the pike and this is how you need to, this is what dictates your life. So I basically grew up thinking, I don't need no man. I can go out and get it myself. I'm just as good as a man, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I got that message as a young girl. So most women that are in my age group, I'm gonna say anywhere from 50, maybe mid 50s and down, we all got that same message. So I
Yeah.
know that this was a long response, but I had to give us some historical
Mhm.
context to understand how we got here. That's
Yeah.
the reason why now we're in a place where a lot of times women don't know what their role is. Women say that, they want a man that does this, this, that, and the other because we're kind of repeating things that were said to us by our grandparents. A lot of us have had grandparents in our life that we were close to, and a grandmother, and even moms and aunts always said things like, make sure the man holds your door open, make sure the man brings you flowers, make sure he don't show up to your house empty
Mhm.
handed, whatever. They tell you these things, but they never told you the other pieces that accompany that. They always also said, when I was your age, I didn't get these opportunities. So take advantage of those opportunities. But
Mhm.
simultaneously, they also told you, while they said take advantage of opportunities, they also said, make sure that he takes you out and he pays for everything. So
Mhm.
when we get these messages that are conflicting to you guys, we're not realizing they're conflicting because we're in a position where we're just kind of following the program that was put in place.
Yeah. And I think for guys, it was I grew up in the Oprah generation too. So I'm hearing all these messages, and as a child, I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, this is just normal. It was like my
Mhm,
mother went to work, my father went to work, but they still had some semblances of the more traditional role.
mhm,
A lot of people say they grew up in a matriarchy. I grew up in a patriarchy. That was unquestionable. So when it comes to what is supposed to happen, that the history lesson that you just gave, part of that, the capitalists were looking at that. It's like the men went off to war and the women came into the factories, were doing all the work and everything, and then when the men came back, it was like, oh, hold up, we just doubled the workforce, we don't have to get
mhm,
wages. So extra raises or things like that. So from the 70s on, since women started coming more and more into the workforce, that's when wages became stagnant. Now, I'm not saying that's women's fault. I'm just saying that that's what's happened. And, part of it to me is like, okay, so now you have a generation, few generations of women who were trained to be providers. And
mhm,
if we're saying that men are supposed to provide and protect, it's like, well, okay, what were the women supposed to be doing? That because now they're becoming providers, well, they missed their training in something else. And let me just go ahead and get the answer, my answer, what it is that a woman's supposed to do.
okay.
I narrowed it down to 2 words, just like to provide and protect, is, nurture and communicate. And those two things go hand in hand. And in fact, we're born with it. So from the protect side, it's like men are upper body is 95% stronger than a woman's. So our ability to protect is much higher. Um, and for a woman, the communicate part, women use 20,000 words a day, whereas men use 7,000 words a day. And so their communication, women's communication is on a completely different level. When I say it's on a completely different level, we all know that if you hear a woman scream, ah, people start running towards her. If you hear a man scream, ah, people start looking around like, oh, shit, I ain't going to check him out. You check him out. I ain't going to check him out. So they even did a scientific experiment at a college. They
Like,
were
you better go get that. You better figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. So you got the situation. They did a test in college where it was like they had a man and a woman off into the other room, and they, and the people weren't hooked up, but they were like, saying that they had, getting electrical shocks. So you had a dial and you turn it up, and you could hear the person. You couldn't see him, but you could hear him, and so they would turn it up. And for the women, as soon as the women started screaming and everything, they would stop. They wouldn't take it too much further. For the men, it was like, oh, let's see how much this motherfucker can take. Just crank it up. He ain't yelling loud enough. Come on, let's go, man. Yeah. So that level of communication is so much more different. And to me, the communications part is the natural born superpower that or innate power that a woman has. And the nurturing side, to me, that's the part that is missing a great deal, and that happens to affect the relationships more than anything. The nurturing side is something you have to be taught. Just like a man is born with that protection ability, that strength, but you have to be taught how to provide. And so now men and women are taught how to provide, but women aren't taught how to nurture. And there are some women are like, well, men need to be taught how to nurture too. I mean, we can, but it's our level of nurturing is going to be different because if we're taught to do the protection part. A part of that protection is the ability to not care. If I'm going downstairs to somebody broke into our house, going to kill everybody in the house and everything, I have to go downstairs. I'm not going to go downstairs and have how is your home life? What's going on? Are you sure you're okay? You need some milk? We can sit down and talk about it. No, I'm going to go
Why
down there.
not? Not playing.
Exactly. I'm gonna go down there, and my
You
man
gonna
just
start
gonna be
blasting,
there. You go. He gonna be missing. He gonna be missing a
missing
body
some
part.
arms.
Missing an arm, a leg,
I
something
said,
like
I
that.
said some arms, like it's more than two.
Hey, he gonna be missing them too. So you gotta do what you gotta do. But it's like there's that difference, and to me, it's not. Hold on a second. My camera doing this thing. To me, it's not. It's not men's fault or women's fault. It's the system's fault, and so we end up getting into arguments and battles and everything like that because no one that I ever heard of has said what a woman is supposed to do, that nurture and communicate part. And if you don't have that there, then you have women who are acting like men. And it becomes this very weird thing because women will say men are bad and want to be equal to them.
Well, yeah, women haven't been told what we're supposed to do. I mean, I don't know what it's like for a lot of men. Like, I don't know if men were told specifically, or like if you were told specifically, this is, what you're supposed to do or whatever. But like for us, we are not given that. Like, literally, I can tell you when I was growing up, well, my situation is a little bit is odd. Like most people, I mean, they had conversations with their moms and their aunts and stuff like that. I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
have those conversations, but what I can tell you is that I kind of got most of my information just from, I'm just going to say, the streets, from the general community around me.
Right.
And the only message I got was, you're just as good as a man. You can do exactly what he's doing. Don't let him hold you back. And then I saw the shows on TV where they're showing. Now, I grew up, I loved the Cosby Show and I love Different World. I know a lot of people where I grew up, they were like, that's fake. I thought it was fake too, to be honest with you. But I
Mm-hmm.
felt like that's the life that I wanted. I wanted to be Felicia Rashad. Like, I really wanted to be her because I was like, she's a phenomenal woman. I mean, she is a go-getter powerhouse, but she's also, a nurturing wife. But those are things that I was not taught. Most women around me, we weren't taught that. We were just given that
Mm-hmm.
hardcore, go out and get it, do it, be it. You can do it. You're just as good. You know that picture that with the woman with the arm like this?
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
kind of like the symbol of what a
Mhm.
lot of us women grew up on. So when you say, what is a woman's role? I kind of feel like for this day and time that we live in, it has to really be a conversation between the
Mm.
man and the woman. And I know that that's probably a lot because usually when you're getting to know somebody, I mean, who's talking about, well, what do you think your role should be? Like nobody's asking those type of questions. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
we should maybe ask those questions,
Yeah.
but we don't realize it until we're like old. Like when you're an old bag like me, you realize, hey, maybe I should start asking certain kinds of
Some
questions.
questions. Yeah,
But you
yeah.
don't know that when you're young. So you waste a whole lot of like, I don't want to say waste actually. I'm just going to say a lot of life goes by and
Mhm.
you don't get to that place until you're older and you realize like maybe I should have, I can't say personally that I couldn't have had any relationship. I mean, I could have definitely been married. I could have been with someone, but I personally didn't feel right because I felt like I didn't even know who I was. I was
Mm.
trying to explore who I was because as a young woman growing up in society, and I'm gonna tell you this. This is something where I kind of think that it would be nice if men had compassion for women in this way. But I know I'm not saying that men are supposed to. I'm just saying like men and women both need to have compassion for one another.
Mhm.
But what I'm saying is, when I was growing up, and this is the case for a lot of women, we are not given any message outside of get a job.
Mhm.
All of our messages point to go to school,
Yeah,
after school, and get a
yeah.
good job.
And that's
So
why.
that's the reason why women are walking around talking about they got these advanced degrees and these great jobs and thinking that a man wants that.
Yeah. And I always say, because people are like, "Hey, Brian, so you're single, no kids, and middle class. So what's going on? Why don't you have a woman? Blah blah blah." And it took me a while to figure out why. At first, I was saying because I was smart, and I was just being sort of snarky with it. But it was so many other people around me who were like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that's so smart," and I was like, "Okay, that's not." That doesn't seem like the right answer. And then it was like I realized that women have been trained to be like men, and I'm not gay. So if you're coming around me with a whole bunch of masculine energy, I don't know what to do with that. And I think a lot of guys are confused like in that way because, women, like I said, for when women act like men, they sometimes act like the worst version of men. So if they're going to be aggressive, they're going to be hyper aggressive. They're going to, say things that are just, and the culture just allows it to happen. Women can just curse out a man all types of ways. They've done all types of, studies and stuff. They'll take men out in public with a woman. If the woman's berating him, people just walk past and laugh and everything. If he starts berating her, they start coming to her rescue and things like that. So, we're dealing with like, women who are just like us, and it's confusing because obviously not. But to go out on a date with a person who has as much money as you do, is in damn near in the same situation as you are, and it's like, well, no, I have to open the door and pull out the chair and pay for the date and do all these things that it came from the past and actually don't really fit anymore. It's like the reason why you pull out a chair because the chairs used to be extremely heavy because they were made of wood and oak and all this other kind of stuff. You used to have to open doors because the doors were heavy to keep out flaming arrows and battle axes and stuff like that. Now the doors can be opened by my grandmother. I mean, my grandmother, my mother. She has a cane, but she can go to a store and go to a restaurant, pull out a chair, and she can
Yeah,
open up
they
a
made out of
door.
plastic.
Yeah. So it's like, now where guys are running around doing things that are, sort of useless. But if we recognize, different things about each other, it's like the whole purpose of those acts was to show attention. And it's like, yes, hey, I'm paying attention to you. Oh, a coat over the puddle or whatever, all these different romantic gestures. It's like, well, okay, in today's world, the gestures are different. It's not
Well,
necessarily.
then I can understand that too, though, because back in the day, men and women usually just dated like singularly, like
Mhm,
one man dated one woman. And it seemed like when those matches came together, it was usually either a family member or somebody brought them together
mhm,
and they just kind of made it work. It wasn't like, I think now what's happened is that because we have so many options, you guys are still the same. but we're different
Hmm.
because now we have a lot more options. We have like a whole new world has opened up to us. So now we're kind of, I know I was thinking that actually. I wanted to sing that, but I was like, let me not do that right now.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like a whole new world has opened up to us. And so now we're exercising those options. And most men know that when women have options, we're trying this one, this one, this one, this one, and that one.
Hmm. Going shopping. You're going
Yes.
shopping. Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make sure that we find the right one for us. But the problem is we don't even know what the right one is for us. And I know that a lot of guys, they notice that and they talk about that too, because
Hmm.
they're like, women don't even know what the hell they want. I have so many guy friends that say that. They're like, y'all say y'all want this, y'all want that, blah, blah, blah. But when a man is giving you that exact thing, then you act like you don't want it.
Yeah.
I,
And
I mean, we
I
don't
think
know
it's
how to deal with it.
Yeah, I think it's that once again, it's like, if you don't know what you're supposed to do, then you go into the situation, it's confusing because it's like, well, okay, I'm supposed to, your nature would say that, okay, I want to be home with the kids, but your training has said you're supposed to be out there working. And so then you see him and he's going out there working and he doesn't come back home and do the nurturing thing like you do, and you're like, well, he's not doing enough work and blah blah blah. And there's always this complaint that a woman comes home from work and then she's taking care of the kids and he's not. Yeah, because we don't have that the nurturing instinct isn't front and center. I mean, can we we can definitely flip the roles. It's like a woman can provide and protect, a man can nurture and communicate. We're just not going to be able to do it at the same levels. So and it's funny, I've had this conversation with women. I would say yeah, the man provide protect because they don't know what else they're supposed to do. They will say, well, I can protect just as much as you can. I'm like, that's physically impossible. It is. I'm sitting here. I've been physically dominated by my brother for 17 years. He's like 4 years older than me. So I know what it's like to have someone who's just that much stronger than you, just be able to handle you, period. And it's like, I'm looking at these women who are saying this, it's like, I can handle you, period. But you're saying that you could protect your daughter or your family from me. No, you can't. So it's like, there becomes all these different, things that women believe in terms of like what they can do, that in that one is just happens to be dangerous because you have women who are like, oh, I've seen women do weird, I mean, I say weird stuff, they would just put themselves in danger that if they were a man and did the exact same thing, they just be there'll be the EMTs will be on their way, the ambulance will be on their way. So and I think that's something that we keep saying such things like men can't hit women or shouldn't hit women. It's like, obviously you can. And there in some cases where I never believe that. I don't need to abuse anybody. I just know because I've been physically dominated. I know if somebody wants to hurt you, how it feels to be hurt. So I'm not going to do that to somebody else. But at the same time, if I'm out with my pregnant wife and somebody comes over and tries to attack her or something, I don't care what you are. I'm going to handle you. If you touch my mother, I'm going to be there when you come out the coma talking about you need to apologize. So, it's I'm not
But
giving up.
the reason why women feel like that is because, see, this is another place where guys don't understand that women, we are being brought up by other women. Okay, I'm going to go back into history again.
Mhm.
Not sure which year exactly, but the Welfare Reform Act was
Mhm.
created sometime in the 60s or 70s. And that was basically for it, it was created for the reason that it serves today, which is to help mothers that, there's no father in the household and, she has to provide for her children. Well, when the Welfare Reform Act came out, there was a stipulation that in order for the woman to receive the money, there cannot be a man in the household. And
Mhm.
I believe there's some statistic out where, with black people, we were we had a high marriage, how am I looking to say this? You know what I'm saying?
Marriage rate.
We were we were married at a high percentage rate in
Mhm.
America, like prior to the Welfare Reform Act is what I'm saying. That our numbers were higher as far as being married because we had to rely on one another because we only had one another. We were in a country that disliked both of us. So we had to
Mhm.
work together. Like it behooved us to work together.
Right.
Miss Steele, my teacher back in high school, she used to be like, it would behoove you to pay attention to the lesson.
Mhm.
Anyway, it behooved us to work together. So what ended up happening is that after this welfare reform act was put into place, we kicked the man out so we could collect the check. And once we collected the check, we saw that, hey, I don't need him. And
Mhm.
now we further add salt to the wound by saying, not only do I not need you because I can collect a check from the government, but I also don't need you because I can go out and get a job. And now
Mhm.
I can make my own money if I decide to stop collecting a check.
Mm.
So that put separation between the black women and black men. And now I think what ended up happening is that black men kind of probably felt displaced. They felt like, well, since there's no place for me, I'm just going to go hang out and just do nothing, just be a
Mm.
loser.
Yeah. I
And
mean, and
then
this.
there's when boys are born to single mothers, what kind of influence is he getting? The
Yeah.
only influence he can really count on is an uncle. And chances are, if the father is not in his life, then it's going to be the uncle on the mom's side. You can identify with that too.
Yeah.
So
Imagine that. Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
saying, and this is usually what ends up happening. I mean, grandfathers usually kind of just sitting in their chair, just you know, waiting for time to go by until it's
Mm.
their turn. But
Yes.
usually, it's kind of. I mean, I know it sounds morbid, but I'm just saying that's the reality. A lot of grandfathers are not really hands on.
Right. Yeah.
Uncles are not necessarily that hands on too in the masses, but uncles are kind of like the last hope for a lot
Mhm.
of young boys being brought up by single mothers. But what ends up happening, and I've heard this from a lot of my guy friends too, which is kind of unfortunate, is that sometimes women feel like, hey, this is my child. I don't like
Mhm.
what you're telling him. I don't like what you're doing. I don't
Mhm.
like how you're doing it. So, you know,
And I think
they'll
that.
kind of remove them.
And I think there's the issue is that once again, men and women being told that we're equal when we're not, because it's for men we operate off a structure. I mean, that's the reason why we build buildings, and with the meaning of life is control, and humans need to control other things. So men, we control the environment all the way up to space, and women control other humans. So it's like if you take a picture of gears and a face and you put them in front of a baby, the girl will look at the face and the boy will look at the gears. Both of them like, I'm gonna control that. I'm gonna control that. So in order for a boy to be raised properly, he has to have that structure around him, and it has to be a level of control because he has so much power. If he doesn't learn how to control it properly, then he can uh, 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 abuse it, not use it correctly. And at the same time, if he doesn't learn how to use it correctly, then he's not as useful to society, because it's like, hey man, we need for you to go over here, build this wall or do something like this, and you can't control yourself. You don't realize it's like, yeah, hard work. I have to, get up. I have to do this, blah 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 blah. So it's like the way men function with boys is completely different than women, because the deepest thing I've heard recently was that women are born with value and men have to earn their value. And that even plays out in our physiology, as in women are born with a certain number of eggs, and men, we have to generate our eggs, not eggs, we have to generate our sperm every day, 10 million to 200 million sperm a day. So, women are taken care of when it comes down to society. As much as women complain about, oh, society is this, it's like, hey, if a woman gets removed out of the house or whatever, she has places to go. If a man gets kicked out of the house, whatever, he has no place to go. And no one's saying anything about it, because before it was like the women were caring for the men in the nurturing side, and the men were caring for the women on the structural providing side. And now that's like disjointed. And so we have women who like, they don't care about men. They're like, I'm gonna just say whatever I feel like to you, and whatever. And for men, it's like, well, we still want to provide that structure as a provider. It's like that's the reason why some women like get bored with their man, and it's because it's like, hey, we got you. We're going to build the fort. You're safe. We're inside the fort. We're safe. No. Well, I mean, for another person, it's like that fort is boring. You know, I got to stay inside these four walls. You don't want to travel. You don't want to go anywhere. You don't want to do this. And it's like, yeah, because I'm safe here. I built this fort for us. Why aren't you happy with this?
Hey, amen to that. Okay, I love getting out doing things,
Mhm.
traveling.
And that, you know, and somebody was making a point of that. It's like now you see women traveling by themselves. That is something that could not happen just 60 years ago.
And
You
I've
take
been
it back.
there too,
You go there. Well,
international and everything. I'm
mhm.
like, I ain't gonna let that stop me.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like so we're now in a completely different age, and like you said, I think the conversation has to be different now. The conversation, you know, typically the way we're taught to date and mate is that okay, we meet each other, we talk, are we sexually attracted to each other, you know, all the romantic stuff, can we do all that stuff? And it's like you reach a certain age where it's like, hold up, that shouldn't be the question. You know, obviously you want the attraction, you want, you know, the conversation and stuff like that. But the question really should be, can I live with this person for the rest of my life? And that's a completely different
And that's
conversation.
kind of a hard conversation to have in the sense that something that I've noticed with people is that people tend to not like to be honest.
Hmm.
Everyone tends to not to like to be honest. And that might sound a little crazy, but it's like I know when I talk to people, I'm kind of straight and I'm direct. And I think that my experience has been, especially with men, that a lot of times they feel like it is their responsibility to make sure that I feel comforted by everything that they say. But I
Hmm.
feel like when they're doing that, they're doing it because number one, they're trying to somehow, I guess, jump ahead of the curve and like like maybe I don't know, stop a potential like issue from
Hmm.
blowing up because I guess a lot of women can get volatile with certain I don't know because I'm not like really a lot of women. Like I love and I enjoy a person just being straightforward and straight up with me. So I'm not really used to that. So when guys are like doing all of this, like beating around the bush and
Hmm.
walking around, you know,
You
the
get
the
the
mulberry bush to try to say what he has to say to me, it gets really annoying. And I'm just trying to get direct and straight to the truth and to the heart of the matter because I want to know, like you're saying, not that I'm asking, are we compatible for life? But like if I'm
mhm.
asking questions, but I am also processing them in my mind. And by processing your truth into my mind, that will help me to make the determination whether I see you fitting in naturally with me. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
And I would say that for a lot of guys, it gets confusing because once again, women, y'all control that communications realm. I can sit there and say my 7,000 words, and you swamp me with 20,000 words. It's like, I mean, it's
Well,
shell shock.
what's confusing? I want to hear
So,
what's the confusion.
so it's like, well, okay, a couple of things. If you're once again, if you're dealing with a person that doesn't know what they want, then you can, you know, you present this, and they're like, oh yeah, and then you present something else, like, oh no, you're an asshole. I mean, you know, you can be cursed out, and when women feel very comfortable cursing out a guy because there's no repercussions for doing it, and so they feel like
Are
cursing
you
you out.
saying that they'll feel like cursing you out just because you said any like give me an example of something that is actually confusing or that has confused you?
Um, Okay, so there was a young lady I was dating, and I would bring her flowers, and you know, every once in a while, just some flowers, and you know, just being nice, whatever. And she looked like she didn't care about it at all because you know she would just take the flowers, put them down, and just be about her way. And I was like, at first, I was like, you're not going to put them in a vase. You're not going to. They're just going to, you know, it's sort of like someone giving you a nice gift, and you just got and don't
Yeah.
even look at it again. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, she doesn't like this, so I'm not going to do it anymore. And then later on, she was saying, well, you used to give me flowers. Now you don't do that anymore. I'm like, what just happened? Now this wasn't a case where, you know, she's was cursing me out or anything like that.
Mhm.
But you do come
You were
across.
confused because it seemed like she didn't care, and then all of a sudden she said something that made you feel like she cared.
Yeah. And another one just this one lady, she, you know, she said she wanted to go with me, you know. I forgot. I
That
forgot
sounds
to.
like back in the day.
Yeah,
Like,
no, yeah,
you go
yeah,
with me, I
yeah,
go with
exactly.
you. We
And
go with each other.
we was in our we was in our 20s, late 20s, and she said,
She wanted to
want to
go
be,
with me.
yeah, boyfriend, girlfriend, however she said it. And I was like, no, because I knew her personality. I was like, we're not going to match.
You said we're
And
not gonna go together.
yeah, I said, we're not going to go together. And she said, well, fuck you, because you ain't shit anyway. So it's like, it
Fuck
doesn't take,
you. You ain't
yeah,
gonna go with me.
you ain't, I'm sitting
You
there like, hold up. So I went from like, I was good enough to go with you to I'm not shit anyway. What?
Ugh,
That doesn't make any
she
sense.
bruised her ego. I mean, it's
But yeah, I mean, I know I bruised her ego, but the response is so over the top. It's sort of like, if a woman said that to a guy, he came and say, "Hey, I want to go with you," and she just rejected him, and he just started stomping around the room like, "What the fuck? I don't want it." You would just be like, I don't want to go through that again." And so you end up with guys who are like, like I said, it doesn't take too many. And nowadays, you can just see it on TV. It's not you have to experience it yourself. You can just look at one of these housewife shows or whatever, and just see this woman just going off on this dude, and you're like, I really don't want to have that happen to me. So you just learn, it's like, how do I tiptoe around
you
this
know what
this
I feel
situation?
like? I have said this for so many years. I feel like guys have to learn how to really just stand up to women. And when I say this, I don't mean
Hmm.
I don't mean go off on women and do the same thing that women do to you. What I'm saying is if you stand for something,
Hmm.
you have to put your foot down about how you feel about whatever it is that you feel. Like, let's say, for instance, if the woman disrespects you and she says, fuck you, you ain't shit, your dick is little, and your mom ain't shit, whatever she says,
Hmm.
I feel like you kind of got to put your foot down and be like, I'm not tolerating that type of behavior. If that was like a final straw for you, walk away clean.
Hmm.
Don't look back. Don't even respond because that to me that warrants like I'm done. Because I've actually had guys cuss me out
Hmm.
for no reason. I've been on the opposite side where I've been like the man in a situation where I didn't deserve to get cursed out. This has happened to me like 3 times where I told a guy I was very honest. I'm very honest about everything. I was honest with God with 3 different guys in 3 different situations where I told him, "Look, we're hanging out. I'm not interested.
Hmm.
That's it. I'm not interested in doing anything long term with you." They're like, "Okay, that's cool." And I think that guys get so used to women saying one thing, but then, "Oh, well, maybe I can kind of convince her to,
We get
do this or do that."
so many mixed messages, and in terms of.
That's the thing, because guys don't the thing is and it's hard because it's like, I know how a lot of women think, so obviously I can speak to a woman's side of things, but there is a lot about me that doesn't really operate or function the way the typical woman does, because when I say no, I really mean no. If I say yes, I really mean yes.
Mhm.
I don't mince my words, I don't confuse anything.
Well,
So if I say
it's like Dave Chappelle said, yeah, it was. You're wearing the same uniform. So as a woman, you say that it's still like, okay,
I mean,
uh,
I get
I
it.
I can't tell she's different from many other women.
I
So
know, and I
yeah.
get it, and I think
Mm.
that that's probably the same situation that happens with women too. We look at men, and you could be a good guy, but if a woman has been hurt by multiple guys in the past, she's not going to look at you and say, "Oh, he's one of the good ones." She's going to
Mhm.
look at you and be like, "Oh, did you blah 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 blah?" Let me see your phone, and I know you got a whole bunch of women out there. Oh, I
Mhm.
know you just ain't single. How many kids you got or whatever. I mean, she's gonna think this just because that has been, the trajectory of her past. And that's the unfortunate thing
Mhm.
that happens, especially I think it gets harder as you get older because
Mm.
as you get
Yeah.
older, people have had so many different situations that at some point it's like they don't even want to trust nobody because you just get tired of that shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You get tired of trying to allow somebody to tell their truth and then that person probably thinking, "Oh, you're gonna be like the other person, so let me respond in a
Mhm.
certain way." And
Just
then now you're
getting
gonna get the
jaded.
same old response that they were doing with someone else. I mean, it's just kind of really unfortunate, but that is what happens.
Yeah, and I think just getting back to the topic. I mean, in terms of the nurturing and the communications part, people have talked about wife school and women's school, something like that. Whereas, I mean, because it's like as guys, we have no idea how to deal with this, and that's the reason why you have the MGTOW movement. And for those who don't know, that's men going their own way. And you have the red pill movement, which is blue and
I
red pill.
disagree,
Hmm. What's that?
but not 100%. I think it's only you old men that are the ones that cannot deal with it. The reason why I'm
Hmm.
saying this,
Hmm.
no, listen why I'm saying this.
Hmm.
Because young guys are being brought up by these single women
Hmm.
who are, while they are simultaneously training their girls, the boys are overhearing the messages.
Hmm.
So they already are going to have a good understanding of how these women function. Unfortunately, when old people like us, after we die, I think that what's going to gradually happen is that the culture will change and transition into something naturally on its own. Because we can sit here and have a conversation and say, "Oh yeah, the conversation needs to change. We need to ask certain questions." We need to do that amongst ourselves. I'm saying, like,
Hmm.
you, if you're talking to someone, a woman in her, let's say her 30s or 40s or whatever, yeah, you're going to have a certain kind of a conversation. Just like me, I would have to have a conversation
Hmm.
too, like what you're saying with a guy that I'm dealing with. But
Well,
I think men and women in the younger generation, they're just going to naturally sort of fit into whatever because their mindset is a lot different.
oh yeah, their mindset is a lot different, but I think it's a lot worse because now we're even further removed from that. So that piece I was talking about, I'm talking to women in their 40s, late 40s, who are, we talk about that protect thing, and they're like, oh, I can protect like a man can, and it's like, well, okay, if you believe that, then you've been teaching, and other people have been teaching other younger women that. And I just saw an interview with a guy was just doing a regular street interview, nothing, crazy or anything like that. And he was asking a woman, what are the good qualities of a man? And she couldn't name any. And so he was like, well, okay, none at all. Okay. What about muscularity? And she was like, we're just as strong as you are. And he was like, no, did that, hold up. What? And so she literally got to the point where she couldn't say it and she started crying. I mean, it's like, it's
She
that
started crying.
intense.
What was she saying when she cried?
She was just basically like, I don't understand what I mean, because women are just as strong as men. It's like, obviously, no, not. I mean, I'm taller than you right
Wow.
now. What are you talking about? So, I mean, it's
That
taking it,
subconscious programming is real.
yeah. So it's taking it to an extra level, and so you have girls who are younger women who are going around now. Just I saw a video. This was years ago, but I saw a video on YouTube. This boy was asleep. He was like in his teenagers, and the girl just, oh, my camera. Uh, the girl just came over while the boy was laying down asleep and just smacked him to his nose bled. Just one smack, and his nose. He wakes up like, oh, nose bleeding, and she's running around the room like laughing, like hee hee hee. And the other girls in the room were like hee hee hee, and the other guys were like, hey, calm down, slow down, because they could see what
Mhm.
he was just building up, and she just. They're trying to keep her away from him, and she's just prancing around like, hey, he's not going to do anything. And he clocked her. And it's like, yo, this is the danger part that I'm saying that has to happen where we have this conversation where it's like, ladies,
That part,
no, yeah,
yeah, I don't know because I've even seen videos where pregnant women are fighting or getting in a dude's face, and
mhm.
I
Yeah. I
don't
mean,
know what part of the game is that in.
if you're, but once again, if no one's giving you any guidance in the opposite direction or a different direction, then it's like, no, of course not. Of course, people aren't going to pay attention to what you got to say. So it's like, as a guy, if you get into a fight, it's a completely losing conversation. So, like you were saying, stand on your principles or whatever with the woman. There isn't anything to stand on because everybody else in society will support her and not the guy. And so if
No, you're wrong, but you're not wrong.
that's that
Okay.
confusing thing.
No.
That
No, this is
confusing
what I'm
thing.
saying. No, I'm saying
Hmm.
you're wrong to say don't stand on your principles because everyone will support her. But yes, I understand what you're saying that
Hmm.
society will rally behind the woman. Totally, we're in agreement with that. I get that. But what I'm
Correct.
saying is no. You stand on your principles. And the reason why I'm saying this is because you can walk away. And that's what I don't understand. Why don't guys just, if you're in a situation and
Hmm.
you feel like this could turn really nasty and it
Hmm.
could land me in jail or in a really worse situation,
Hmm.
leave.
Well, here's something. I mean, let's think this all the way through.
Okay.
Your premise is that men, and I mean that put words in your mouth, but it sounds like your premise is men don't get emotional. Also, we get emotional in a different. It's not as soon. It's not as fast. It takes longer, and that's the whole thing. If you need to be able to control yourself, because our emotion ends up being emotion. So once again, women will say things to men that if another man said it, it's immediately a fight. But it's like, well, okay, I can't hit her. I can't even yell at her. So she's just going to keep. And this has happened to me. I was in an abusive relationship with a person who was like, who was she? She was like not 4 foot. Yeah, she was like 5'1" and a buck 20. And at that time, I was like 225 at 5'10". So it was like there was no match at all. But it's like, how do you don't understand what to do? So once again, you're not taught. She's not
No,
taught.
this is what I'm saying.
Mhm,
I understand that one off. Everyone is going to have a one off situation. Well, not that you have to
mhm,
have it, but there's
mhm,
a possibility that you can have a one off. Just like if a woman ever gets hit by a man, there's nothing that, I mean, I can't say 100% there's nothing that would have not indicated that she would have gotten hit, but I'm saying when a physical act or any act actually happens,
mhm,
you have a decision to make after that act has happened. That's what I'm saying. So I'm not saying that, oh, it's just so easy to say, hey, well, you know what? Um, I'm in this situation where this 5 foot, zero woman that's 2 pounds is trying to, buck up against me and threatening me. I'm not saying that immediately in the middle of that you're going to know exactly what to do and how to handle it,
mhm,
but you should kind of know if you have some kind of values or principles about yourself. You know that, okay, well, I was taught not to hit women, so I'm not going to hit her. Maybe you have to push her back and then you have to remove yourself. But then what I'm saying is, regardless of what you do, however you choose to handle that first situation, which is probably not going to be as violent as it would be if
mhm,
that situation progressed over time,
mhm,
you had a decision to make after that first time something happens.
mhm,
That is now on you, how you handled the situation later. If she came at you, for instance, like we just saw this thing happen where this cop shot this 15-year-old girl because she was trying to stab this girl, and the cop acted the way the cop acted. I mean, whatever, this is not that topic, this is not that show.
mhm,
But what I'm saying is, however you decide to handle that situation immediately, that's how you handle the situation.
mhm,
Chances are you're not going to kill her. But
mhm.
at after whatever you've done has been done, you make the decision that this seems like it could possibly be a pattern. Let me remove myself because if it happens again, it's going to be even worse.
Yeah. I mean, everything you're saying is logical. And of course, that logical doesn't typically happen very well in relationships. So, you have a man who's just like a woman. It's like a woman who, like, oh, he hit you once, or not even hit you, just threw something, just just scared you enough by stomping around the room or whatever he was doing. And you're like, oh, but we got the kids, we got the house, we got the family, blah blah blah, and so I don't want to, and so you let it slide the first time, second time, and third, and then things just start falling apart. The same thing happens with a man. Is like, well, she yelled it, maybe it was my fault. I mean, I went through that. It was like I was trying to figure out why, for people who know me, I very rarely argue. I'm very logical. So it's like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm right, whatever. And with her, it was like every week it was an argument. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. It was like, oh, during the week it's fine. And then boom, argument. It's like, okay, that was one. Boom,
You need a
boom.
little bit of excitement.
Yeah, I mean, it just kept on building to the point where it's like, and this is the crazy part. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm leaving. And she got upset about that. I'm like, hold up. You don't even like me. She's like, but I love you. I was like, I don't care about that part. People love their dogs. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean anything to me. It's love, like, and lust if we in a
Mm.
relationship. and the like isn't there at all, because if you like someone, you don't argue with them every week. But those are things that takes a while to get. And though we have the advantage of experience, and things like that. Once again, the problem is that this isn't being taught early on. This isn't being taught in schools. We don't learn about sex, relationships, and children in school. We just learn how to get money, and this is all for the
Because
capitalistic
school is
society.
even new.
Hmm?
Because school is new. And
Yeah,
capitalism is old. And school is used in conjunction with capitalism.
yeah, yeah.
So we're never going to really learn. I don't think we're going to ever really learn how to, like, what our role is, what the man's role, what the woman's role is. I think that it's just all about, like, well, y'all figure it out. But in the meantime, we need this tax money.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
saw
yeah.
this meme the other day. It was so funny. It said the IRS, but when you put it together, it says theirs.
Ooh, wow.
It's like, and
Yeah.
then there was like a man and a woman sitting in front of the IRS agent, and then the
Mm.
guy is like, he's looking at his wife, and he's like, "Can't you see the sign, honey? It says theirs. It means it's all theirs."
Yep. Yep.
But I
Yep.
mean, yeah, this whole situation, I think that with roles, I really just think it really is going to boil down to a conversation amongst two people, because some women are
Mhm.
going to be okay carrying a man, and maybe that man will be okay being at home, and
Mhm.
vice versa. Maybe there's a man that wants a traditional woman, and a woman wants to be traditional as well. I don't really think there's a one size fits all for this. It's kind of hard to say that there's just going to be this neat package, because this society has changed in so many different ways. I mean, it started off where it was one big culture, everyone kind of followed the same rules, but now we have so many different schools of thought and so many different directions we can go. And I just think that at this point, it literally comes down to a conversation between two people, and people owe it to themselves and the other person to be real with themselves, be real with the other person, ask those hard questions,
Mhm.
and that's what it boils down to. I
Yep.
don't think it's going to happen because I don't have faith in people, but that's just what it really is about. You know what I mean? People
Yeah,
ain't going
that's
to be
true.
real because people ain't real.
That's true. Hey, we're coming up on the hour here. This is for
Yeah.
those folks who you joining in just a little bit later. This is Uncle B and Fee. This is our inaugural
Dang.
event right here. So we're gonna be
The
talking about,
inauguration.
yeah, not without storming the Capitol.
Yeah,
So
right.
this is our first joint. So we'll be coming back with some more content that's relevant, that's deep, that's gonna push the
Yeah.
conversation along. We got some topics. So
Yes, we do.
we're gonna be doing this weekly. So
Talking
please
about manses and womenses.
hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you can get some more of this information. And yeah, this has been fun. I'm looking forward to doing
It
this again.
has been, I
Uh,
know, and hopefully at some point we will be able to like help uncover, unearth, dissect, and figure out something to get us on the same page a little bit at some
thank you.
point.
Thank you, Jesus. Let's go ahead and pass the plate. Once again, Sister Fee, we want to thank you for
Yes,
presenting to the church.
pass that plate this way, honey.
This is going to be the third
I
time.
could use some extra coins.
We need another doorknob for the building. That's what we need right now. Please give if you can, and even if you can't.
That's
Thank you,
right.
Jesus.
We don't want to hear none of that jingle. We want only the money that
Folk.
folds.
Uh-huh. And in fact, we took it further than that. Cash app us at churchnegroes.com. All right.
Somebody gonna really look that up.
Yeah, I
We
have to
really
get to
need to
hurry up and get that
create that.
damn self.
Hurry up and put that up. Churchnegroes.com.
Churchnegroes.com. Mm-hmm. All right, folks. It's
All
been
right.
wonderful.
It's been
And
real booze.
y'all take it easy. This is Uncle B, and that's
And
Fee.
it's C.
We're
All
going to take
right. We'll see you next time.
next
Next
time.
week.
Later.
Same bat time, bat place.
Deuces, all that stuff. Bye.
Toodaloo.